love a lot of times can conquer all, but it takes a big dose of patience and resilience.
And now,
Aye, aye. I'm the captain now.
coming to you from the K2 Studios in San Diego, California.
This sounds great. You sound amazing.
I always sound amazing.
It's the world famous
Everybody's hitting off like BFFs.
Kris and Kristine Show.
Hey, what's happening, everybody? How are you doing today? Thank you so much for listening. And I am Kris.
And I'm Kristine, and welcome to episode 126 of the Kris and Kristine Show. Do-do-do-do.
Ah, fantastic. You know what this weekend is, baby?
This week has been a week that I've worked a whole lot, but what is this week for you?
It's been spring break week.
For you.
Vacation Kris is in the house.
Breaking free.
Ah, you know what? Good thing about not working is not working.
Oh, you mean like not working while you're on vacation?
Well, I've been working while I've been on vacation.
I meant like you said not working. I meant as opposed to being unemployed.
Exactly.
Yeah, not working vacation Kris is different from not working and no money Kris.
Everybody loves a good vacation, Kris, right? I mean,
I do love a good vacation, Kris, although you've been a little bit cranky the first bit of this week. Maybe it was because we were so busy, but I'm glad that you've snapped out of it. It seems like true vacation Kris took a little bit longer to activate this time.
it is. I'm sorry. You know, I think it's just a whole rush of working, and it was my very first vacation of 2022. I know.
Has it been?
First world problems. I got my first vacation of the year.
You know, I wonder what you would be like if you took 2 full weeks back to back off for vacation, because it takes you a couple of days to transition in, and then like tomorrow or Monday, you'll start transitioning out of vacation Kris mode. What would it be like to get you for 2 weeks?
Well, I do know, this is a side note fact, by the way, is that since I'm on a 4-day work week, I know, first world problems, I know.
Right.
So because I'm on a 4-day work week, I have 3 days off. So funny thing is when I take a regular 1-week vacation, that equals to 10 solid days off.
I know.
End to end.
I know, everybody.
But
he's rubbing it in.
But if you take 2 weeks combined, you actually lose time when you do that. That's why I never do it that way.
How can you lose time if you automatically get time off?
No, I bet you lose time on your vacation, the amount of days off in a single time, because with a single week, you get the weekend at the beginning.
Oh, yes, I
the
see
weekend
what you're
at the end.
Got it.
But if you do 2 weeks, you get a weekend at the end, weekend in the middle, weekend at the end.
So the best thing to do is work a week, take a week off, work a week, take a week off.
There you go. Now you're thinking like a pro.
That's funny. Well, what are some of your highlights of what you've done during vacation week? I know that first of all, I know that you've been very busy around the house. I do really appreciate the fact that you have been chipping in and supporting on the latter half of the week. The first half of the week could have used a little bit more energy by you.
Well, I think the first weekend, like the first day off, I'm like, yes, it's like the very first, you go to school and your very first day off after school, like the very last day of school. Mm-hmm. So the very first day off, no school,
like
no
first day of summer break.
Right. What do?
Sleep.
Exactly. Like
pajamas.
Like nothing. You lounge and you just relax.
Eat junk food.
Yeah. You're like, I got a whole entire summer to worry about actually doing stuff. Like this is the first day off.
And then you turn around and you look and it's like, oh wait, it's all gone.
Well, for me, it was the very first day off was like that very same feeling. It's the very first day off from not having to work. So I got the whole vacation ahead of me. I'm looking down the barrel of an entire long vacation. Well, 10 days. Mm-hmm. 9 now. I just wasted one sitting around doing nothing. Mm-hmm. But
binge eating ice cream.
Yes, doing all those fun, fantastic stuff. So that was kind of like my first day off, was kind of getting prepped into the vacation mode. And although I was on vacation and I did not go anywhere, we didn't go anywhere on this vacation. It was a staycation. Well, I don't think it was even called a staycation. It was more like a homecation, really.
Well, I think it would be a staycation because we did go out and do fun things with the kids in the evenings. We went to bowling. Where else did we go? We went out, to the Crab Shack place, the Joe's Crab Shack by the convention center. What else?
We had the kids all week. That's another thing, too. Since it's spring break, and since I was I was off work for spring break, the children were all here off of school for spring break. Ezekiel was here.
Well,
Jacob was here. Mason was here.
Let's slow it down. I did not plan for that because you were on vacation. I planned for it because the kids were on break and I work remotely and I figured I could be with them. It just so happened that you were off of work also. And I think that's where it got complicated because when you have your time off of work, you like to just like be able to go free and do whatever you want. And I needed your support with managing kiddos. And I think you get a little bit frustrated with me when I'm like, Kris, you can't just like up and leave me with 3 kids while I'm working full time. Maybe I should just like, I don't know, not tell you when they're all going to be here.
Sometime in April or March. And I said, well, when are the kids out of school?
And the answer is that the littles are out for 2 weeks. Can you believe they get 2 weeks for spring break?
Yeah, I think so. I think now you get don't they get 2 or 3 for Christmas?
3 for Christmas, 2 for spring break.
Back in my day, it was 2 weeks for Christmas and only 1 week off for spring break. That was it.
Well,
and
that
maybe
was the olden days.
Half a week, yeah. Actually, you took a wagon to school. It was like a horse-drawn carriage.
I was just going to say, that's when they shut down the school so everybody could go out and harvest.
Yeah, we had to wake up super early, milk the cows and all that. So, but yeah, we were off and the kids were off. So I tried to keep the kids entertained mostly during the week when they were here. And
you did?
I tried my best.
You did?
Yeah.
I don't recall that. I recall us all going and doing things in the evening. Although I will say, you were a very, very brave soldier. You took all of the kids out on, I think it was on Wednesday night while I had to be up in North County working for my regular job. Where did you take the kids?
Well, it was funny. Side story. All 3 kids are here at the house, doing their thing, playing outside, just playing with stuff, getting into different things and opening packages, not putting things away and playing with stuff. And so out in the backyard, we have a barbecue, which I haven't really used that much since we moved over here. And we also have a hibachi grill right next to the barbecue. It works off propane. They're like a portable hibachi grill too.
Yeah, it's a Blackstone for any of you listening out there.
I don't know the model number, but you get the idea.
No, it's the brand. It's Blackstone. It's a Blackstone hibachi grill.
So Ezekiel was here and he was playing with the hibachi grill outside the patio. He was actually trying to hook a propane tank up to it and get it fired up. I'm like, what are you doing? No, hang on. Oh, I found stuff in the refrigerator. I'm going to cook up for everybody. I said, please put it away, please. I don't know if it even works. We haven't used it since we moved over here. I don't have the tools for it or all the appropriate oils you need to spray on the thing. I don't have that stuff set up. Here's what I'll do, guys. If you put everything back where you found it, I'll take you to hibachi for dinner tonight.
Ooh, bribery.
That's exactly what I did.
Well, I will say, had you allowed Ezekiel to, had you hooked up the propane and everything and given him all of the different ingredients, he would have made you an amazing dinner because he's made on the hibachi grill, fried rice and chicken and stuff like that. So, but I get that was a lot to manage by yourself. If I was here, I would have totally been like, yeah, babe, go ahead and make up your fried rice because he loves and he's so good at making food on the hibachi grill.
He loves that. I think he loves the Benihanas and the hibachi world or whatever. What's the one in Fresno likes to go to?
I call it teppanyaki.
What's the one he likes to go to up in Fresno?
Tokyo Steakhouse.
Okay. But it's all very same concept.
Yep.
Basically what it is. There's a lot of them everywhere. And the funny thing is that I had only known of Benihanas. I didn't know other companies did the same thing. I thought
until we got together. Oh, no, you've been to ShoGuns though.
Right. Only with you. But
I thought you'd been there before with somebody else.
Never.
Oh,
never.
Memories.
Yeah, that's right. Memory one with you, baby. So
they're cheaper than Benihanas too.
Are they really?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So when I went to Benihanas a couple times, I thought that was the only place you could do that kind of stuff at was Benihanas. Had I not known there are other companies, not like ShoGuns, there was a place in Hawaii we went to. It wasn't ShoGuns or Benihanas.
I forget what it was called, but it was
same concept.
But it was kind of like the OG kind of the original brand of the teppanyaki places. I can't remember what it was called, but yeah.
So that night, I took all 3 kids all by myself. I let Ezekiel make reservations. Said, Zeke, go make reservations. Call right now to ShoGuns. Make us reservations. Figure out what the thing was. He said, you have a choice of 5:30 or 8:30 for dinner. I said, it's the 5:30.
Yeah.
Come on now. Book it.
Look at him, my little rock star, being such a helper.
So he booked it all by himself and he put it under an alias name. What did he use? It was
DeMarcus Cousins.
That's the one. I don't know what that even means.
I think it's a YouTuber or a sports person, but he'll tell us. Zeke, if you're listening, you got to tell us who DeMarcus Cousins is.
Right. So he put it under that. And then for the funny thing is, I don't know what it is. We're heading down to the restaurant. I got to call the restaurant and tell them to change my phone number. I said, what? What do you mean? I got to call him really quick. So he calls ShoGuns and he says, DeMarcus Cousins for 5:30. I need to put down a different phone number because the phone number I gave you wasn't correct or something. I thought that's kind of weird.
Yeah,
so
he probably like remembered his dad's or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. So he calls him up. Okay, we're good to go for 5:30. So we're running kind of late. We got there like right in the nick of time, like 5:30 on the dot. We were like pulling into the parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
I told Jacob and Mason, I kicked them out of the truck. I said, hey, you guys, run inside, put yourself on the list, check us in, and I'll go park the truck around the back of the building with Mason.
Did you send Zeke with them?
Zeke and Jacob went into the place.
Oh, because you said Jacob and Mason. So Zeke and
I'm sorry.
Jacob.
Yeah, Mason, Jacob, and Ezekiel went inside to check in early to get our table, make sure we didn't lose it. Because with all these teppanyaki, hibachi.
Teppanyaki.
What do you call it?
Teppanyaki.
Yes, with all these hibachi grill places, it's not like a dining room where the waiter comes to you. The waiters do come to you, but you sit around a table and they cook everything right in front of you on this big like skillet thing. And it's kind of like a kind of show, and everybody sits down together, everybody at the table. Not just you, but the other parties too. The table holds like 10 or 12.
Yeah, I think it's like 10.
So 10 people on one table. So they try to maximize these tables, not just have, 3 of us or 4 of us.
Actually, it's 8. I remember it's 8 people. Go
okay,
ahead.
so we did share a table with another group of people. And but they got in, parked the car, we got in, sat down, and then the kids wanted to order whatever they wanted to order. I said, go ahead, order what you want, guys. So first thing they do is they get Shirley Temples for each of them.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob, they all order. It's funny. And then Ezekiel, he decides to order sushi for himself, a California roll. Which really,
he loves sushi.
It's not really sushi. It's crab meat in the California roll. It's the most mild sushi roll you can get. It's like the basic B of sushi rolls.
But if it's what he likes, is it imitation crab or real crab?
I'm pretty sure it's real crab.
Okay.
But I don't quote me on that. I don't know. So Jacob tried a piece of it and he's like, it's okay. Mason tried a piece of it and he ate it and he like spit it out his plate. He's like, ew, they've got seaweed in this thing. That's seaweed wrapped at rice and seaweed and stuff. So he just picked at that or whatever.
Okay. So while you were there, I was up working in Oceanside School District doing a community engagement process with my main job. And I get this photo from Ezekiel and it says, somebody's turning 12 today. And it's a photo of you with one of the kids' paper crown hats that they do at ShoGuns for birthdays. And because you did go to ShoGun, right?
Yes, we did. Yeah.
And so I was cracking up because the boys are on this kick of whenever we go anywhere, pretending that it's somebody's birthday. And so the night before, we'd gone out to a family dinner and it was at Joe's Crab Shack. And they told the server that it was Mason's birthday and that his name wasn't Mason, but it was Wantavius. And so at Joe's Crab Shack, the way that they do it is that they come over and they announce to the whole restaurant and then everybody has to sing it. And the kids are, I was dying laughing. Everybody was dying laughing because they were like, happy birthday, dear Wantavius. And then Mason was cracking up. And I think that this spring break, that's one of the things that I have as the most fond memories are the family moments that we have had over the past week when we went to Joe's Crab Shack. And then the next night we took the boys to play pool and to go bowling because they really love bowling right now. And it's a really great time for us as a family because what's funny is they want you 4 boys to play and they want me to sit and watch, which is fine with me because I don't want to hurt my shoulder or anything because like with the bowling, it's pretty heavy. And I think especially when I'm doing so many florals and things like that, I don't want to mess up with my muscles. But, being able to go out and do things together I think it's really good for all of us. Because I tend to forget that we're still learning how to gel as a family. If you think about it, you and I, we haven't been married for even 2 years yet. And Ezekiel and I, we had a different life and different routines and different structures and different house rules. And you and your boys had different routines and structures and house rules. And, bringing together different members of a family from different types of backgrounds can be really challenging if we're not aware of like how to do it well, right?
Right, because you don't know what their experiences have been like in the past and what they're thinking about, what's going through their head as they adopt into a new lifestyle or family.
Absolutely. And speaking of adoption, we have a fantastic guest this week who's going to talk to us about her family's journey for international adoption and the books that she's written that can support different families. We're going to be back with her right after this.
Hey, thank you so much for being a loyal listener of the Kris and Christine Show. And as that you are a loyal listener, we have a very fun opportunity for you to get involved with the show.
Ooh, tell me more.
If you like to get exclusive content you can't get anywhere else and to receive free merchandise shipped to you every single month,
Ooh, I want that.
then head over to patreon.com/The Kris and Christine Show. That is patreon.com/The Kris and Christine Show.
And welcome back, everybody. Today we have another fantastic VIP guest on the show. She's a mother, author, and champion for international adoption. Welcome to the show, Anna Maria DiDio.
Thank you. So great to be here.
Thanks for being here, Anna Maria.
We're so excited to have you on the show today. Where in the world are you joining us from?
From Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Ooh, Philadelphia. Now, is that where Rocky was filmed at?
Yes, you are correct.
I also heard that they have those steps. Steps to was it the Capitol building or to the library? They run
The art museum.
Art. Oh, I was way off. Art museum.
Now, is there a lot of people that go up those stairs and they try to do? I think the Rocky was
yes, to imitate the famous training run in the first movie, and then on a daily basis. So the statue is at the bottom of the stairs, and then on a daily basis, there's at least a dozen people lined up for their photos, and people run up and down those stairs, which is amazing considering the movie was 30 years ago. I don't even. No.
That's so crazy that people still to this day.
I bet they think Rocky was the mayor. I would think.
Is it younger people or older people or no?
All ages. All ages. It's just fascinating. And, during COVID, when I went on long walks, there was one time I went by and no one was around. It was very weird. But as I said, on a daily basis, it's hugely crowded, popular, lots of photos, very fun.
You know what's so funny is our 17-year-old, he talks about Rocky a lot and he'll try and reenact things. And I'm like, you're 17. How do you even know what Rocky is? But I think it's one of those movies that it just spans all age groups and all tests of time. Yeah. It's it'll be, 200 years from now when people will be like, let me just watch that Rocky movie.
It's funny. Also, he does not like the song. I tried playing the Rocky song for him and, I Have the Tiger. And he's just nah, I'd rather listen to some rap stuff.
That's all right.
Whatever.
That's okay. Now, what else is Philadelphia famous for? There's their Liberty
cheese,
Bell,
I think, right?
Oh, Philly cheese steaks.
Yeah.
Cheese steaks.
Yeah. Not cheese, Kris.
Not cheese. Cheese. That's Wisconsin. Cheese steak sandwiches.
What's the Philadelphia cheese I'm thinking of then? The cream cheese.
Philadelphia
cream cheese. Yeah. Yes, you are correct.
Not really a cheese, though, Kris.
What do you mean it's not a cheese? It's right in the box. Cheese.
Oh my goodness, what am I going to do with you?
But how do you take your Philadelphia cheesesteak? How do you do it?
With onions, of course.
Okay. I heard that anywhere else does not exist in Philadelphia land. Is that the Philadelphia cheesesteak exists only in Philadelphia?
Oh, you mean if we have it out here, it's not authentic?
Of course not.
We're very snobby about our cheesesteaks.
Yep.
Is there the best place that you would recommend for us to go? Or is it an area of town when we visit Philadelphia?
In South Philadelphia, there are two rival places, Gino's and Pat's. And every once in a while, you'll hear about some fight breaking out.
No way, a fight?
Between the restaurant owners
the patrons. There's just it's a fun neighborhood get together, and it used to be you could get them 24/7. I don't know what the hours are now, but it's college ritual to go down at 2 a.m. and get a cheesesteak.
Wow,
they're open that late?
Yes.
Are they 24 hours?
That's what she was just saying. She doesn't know.
Yeah, it used to be. I'm not sure now if those things have changed, but that's where the best cheesesteaks are in South Philadelphia.
I love a good cheesesteak, let me tell you.
Well, I think that you can probably say, Anna Maria might say you actually don't know if you like it yet because you haven't had a real one since you've not traveled to Philadelphia.
Close. Let me tell you, Anna Maria, there was a store in San Diego here, actually North County area. It was called Philly Franks, and I don't know if they're in business anymore, but they were legit like Philadelphia cheesesteak creators. They were from Philly. They brought all their bread from Philly, all their recipes from Philly. In fact, they actually had like this partition behind the counter, so you could not see the kitchen at all. They won't let you back there to see how they make the sandwiches, and they were pretty good. I went there all the time. They're really good.
Because it's one of those things like, well, how do you make your Philly cheesesteak? If I told you, I have to kill you. That kind of thing.
Exactly.
Now, I've looked at Philadelphia's like geography and things like that. And it seems like from looking at the history of the town, well, first of all, you have a lot of history there, but a lot of movies have been made in the city. Wasn't National Treasure partly in Philadelphia?
I don't know. I think it was everywhere.
What was like the
I think
Liberty
so.
Bell?
It's been a while since I've seen it, but
Are there a lot of fun things to do in Philadelphia? Like, is this something that Kris and I should bring the kids to come and visit?
I would definitely recommend it. It's a fun, very walkable city. It's not too big, not too small. Lots of stuff going on, and along the water or in the parks, or it's really fantastic. I've really loved living here.
That's amazing. My favorite favorite football movie, I should say, is Invincible. Have you seen it?
Of course, yes.
Of course. It's like a staple. I bet you guys have to have. I show it in school, I think, over there, really.
Is it based in Philadelphia?
Yeah, the Eagles.
Oh, I don't know.
About the Eagles, yeah.
The true story.
Oh, Invincible. I was thinking of The Replacements.
Oh, not even true. Not even close. Way off.
No, are you, Anna Maria, from Philadelphia originally, or from Pennsylvania area?
Okay.
Right. Born and raised in Philadelphia, and then our family lived a short time in the Chicago area, but then we moved back.
And one of the things that I would love to know about is that, do the Amish live in Philadelphia? I hear that there's like an area in Pennsylvania around where they live.
That's more Lancaster County. It's about a 2-hour trip from Philadelphia. And the Amish are around. It's beautiful country, absolutely beautiful.
And being in big cities, do you see, and I don't want to stereotype, I'm just always genuinely curious about this. I know that the Amish don't use, for the most part, like gas-powered vehicles. Do you see very many buggies coming into the city very often?
No, that wouldn't be possible in Philadelphia. But if you're traveling out to the Lancaster area and you're driving along, you're going to see Amish and the buggies, and it's great.
That's so intriguing. One of the things Kris and I talk about is I love to travel, and I love to travel internationally. And he continues to tell me, you don't even have to travel internationally, because why?
If you go to Las Vegas, they have the Eiffel Tower. They have They have the what else they have there?
You just say that there's lots of places to visit domestically.
Oh, that
are
too.
like,
that is true.
Yeah, visiting a completely different place.
I mean, there is a lot of cool things here in America. Whether you go East Coast, like where you're at, or if you go out to Hawaii, you got the jungles and all the wildlife out there, and you can see almost every single climate in the world exists in the United States.
And culture. Like, that's one of the things is that I've wanted to visit Pennsylvania for a lot of different reasons. I've heard that Philadelphia is really cool, that Pittsburgh has a really unique culture, and then Amish country is something that I want to go to. So maybe, Kris, you'll take me to Pennsylvania. Maybe we can have dinner sometime, Anna Maria.
That would be fantastic.
As long as it's Philly's cheesesteak.
Now, thank you so much again for being on the show today. And I know that you're a champion for international adoption. Can you tell us, before we jump into that, a little bit about your nuclear family?
Yes, well, we have 2 daughters. The oldest is 27 and the youngest 26, and soon to be 27 and 28. But the oldest child is our biological child, and the younger child is our younger daughter is the one adopted from Mexico.
Oh, that's
from
amazing.
Mexico. What part of Mexico is she from?
She's Cuernavaca is where we visited the orphanage, and she was placed in the orphanage as a baby. So she lived her life mostly in Cuernavaca.
Wow. How old was she when you picked her up?
We met her when she was 6, and then she was 7 by the time we adopted her.
Okay.
Wow.
So a whole year process?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Is that a short process, 1 year from first meeting her to bringing her home, or was there more involved in the adoption process? Did take
Well,
longer than a year?
before that, there was a year of paperwork and behind the scenes. So in total for the adoption, it was about 2.5 years, but we had been in the adoption world at least 3 years or more up to that point as we attempted a domestic adoption, and that did not work out. So the agency that we were affiliated with, actually, that was in New Mexico. And the agency closed its doors, but we had already made the full application process, and we're in the process of waiting. We renewed our paperwork, and then they went out of business, or they stopped, they closed, and it was very frustrating. So,
Did you get your money back, or how'd that work?
Well, the application, the processing fees, and all those things had already been spent. But since we hadn't begun any process with a specific child, it was just kind of, well, it felt like a huge time wasted. So
right, yeah.
For that reason, we started to look into international adoption solutions, and we felt that was the way to go for our family.
Now, international adoption, is the process essentially the same, or is it like easier or harder, you think, for American adoption?
Well, it really depends on which country you're talking about. But over the years, I think the process has become, I don't know if I'll use the word harder or more difficult, just because there's been, some countries there's been children portrayed as orphans when they weren't really orphans. There's been just a lot of fraudulent activity around adoptions. But so they're very careful about making sure that the right people are matched when the adoption finally happens. So, yeah, over the years, the paperwork has definitely increased from when we did it almost 20 years ago. So,
wow, 20 years ago.
It seems like adoption is something that's consistently talked about on the news and social media, and we very rarely hear the success stories, but we hear a lot of the nightmares of domestic and international adoption. And so I would love to pick your brain a little bit to help demystify a little bit of the adoption process and what that was like with bringing your daughter home. I've heard before that there can be real challenges when you bring a child in from a different culture and are trying to integrate them into the fabric of your family. So what was that process like for you?
oh, wow. It was just something that I can say first and foremost that we were somewhat unprepared for. You think that you're doing the best. We already had a little girl, and we thought that the girls would just mesh perfectly into our wonderful, beautiful, happy family. But it's traumatic. I mean, all adoptions begin with separation and loss, and I don't think that I truly understood that as a mother, and really needed to give my daughter more time and space to mourn her previous life. But with time, that all happened, and I'm saying time meaning years.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the reason I started writing. I started journaling our experience when we were in Mexico, and then thought, I'm really going to capture this whole process. And that began with my memoir. So I wrote a book, Love at the Border, kind of not only talking about our process, but just talking about all the funny, happy, surprising, frustrating, sad things that happened along the way. And it was just a tremendous learning experience. And then now, reflecting back on all that, I thought, well, what message or what kinds of things do I want to say now? And that is that, these children need to be given the opportunity, as you said, to verbalize their feelings about just how hard it is to acclimate to a new family.
It definitely is. And do you think, would it be easier on the child had they been at a much younger age? To go through to kind of adapt better to the newer lifestyle do you give for them?
I think it happens a little easier if the child is younger, because the memories, are not quite as formed. But I think the theories and experts in child psychology, and there's a thing called the primal wound, and that's really what happens when a child is separated from his or her biological parent, and just how that manifests itself later in their lives is problematic and needs to be addressed. It can't be ignored. So that was the big lesson for me. I kept thinking, what did I do wrong or what happened? But it was just a matter of giving her space.
That's a really good point, because thinking about it from the child's perspective is sometimes people assume, well, the child should be happy that they quote unquote have a family. And the reality is that every child did have a family, or at least members of it, what they considered a family. And being adopted means they're having to say goodbye to that hope of being part of what they knew as their family and being integrated into a new family. And like you said, there can be trauma and grief and loss that go along with that. And if we're not realistic about that entire process, some people can go into, and again, I'm implying here, but some people may go into the adoption process thinking like it's all just going to be happy and sunshine and roses. Like when you bring your own, like you birth your own child and everybody's celebrating that birth, there's different preparation that I would think has to go into play.
Mm-hmm. You're so right, because my daughter, at 6 years old, I could see that she was just a spunky, precocious, really a funny kid. And one of the things she said when she landed in suburban Philadelphia was, I don't want to go to school here, and I don't want to learn English. And so it was such a huge adjustment to lose all of that. And again, I don't think I was fully processing all of that. And that's the reason I started writing about it, just to call attention to it and figure out where to go.
Anna Maria, what would you think would be your idea for good advice for new parents who decide to go into this journey to adopt foreign children in that same age bracket that you did? What would be the first thing you would tell them if somebody said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this?
Well, I guess in a nutshell, really embrace that child's heritage as much as you can. And we tried to support our daughter many times over. Well, and I'll give you an example, to learn Spanish. It was it was sad for me to watch her lose her native tongue. And as she, as the years passed, I could see it was important for her to get it back, but she didn't know how. It was really, and we tried tutoring. And then as school, kind of in middle school and high school, kind of kicked in with regular classes, that came back, and I'm telling you, it made a world of difference. She was just, it was like another little light had been shining, and it was just amazing. And I think that was really the beginning of her journey to find herself again. It's really, obviously it took many years, so that was part of it.
I could see how that language loss could kind of trigger some more grief and challenges for children. And did you find that it was important for you and your spouse and your oldest daughter to try and learn Spanish also?
We tried a little bit of that, but daily life takes over, and it just wasn't possible. But again, as the girls got older and the school curriculum kind of kicked in, and they had Spanish class, then it started anew. It was, interestingly enough, at one point, my older daughter started an internship. Well, this is too long of a story, probably, but we were in Mexico, and my older daughter spoke better Spanish than, my younger daughter. And it was really kind of like a kick in the butt, so to speak, for her to get her Spanish back and claim her heritage once again.
Right. And so as she's been, well, not to just focus on your daughter, but as you've been navigating this, building your family post-adoption for 20 plus years, other than valuing your youngest daughter's culture and heritage, what are some of the other structures or strategies that you put in place to help make that transition into being a complete family a little bit easier?
Well, one thing that we did, just with my reading, and I'm not the world's expert, but just understanding that a birthday can be hard for an adopted child, and so we came up with Family Day, which was a day that the day that our daughter joined us. Mm-hmm. So that was a special day, and it was kind of just for her, and that's really part of the one of the anchors of my next children's book is to talk about how difficult it is for an adopted child to think about her biological mother, what was lost, what was what does she look like, who do I look like, and as an adopted child would think, but to celebrate at least the things that we can celebrate with the family that we have. So that's what. So we do that on an annual basis, or we try to anyway. We've been to a baseball game, or we go out to dinner, or we do something special.
Do you have any history of her biological parents?
No, unfortunately, I wasn't able to get any information. I told her she could investigate someday. I'm not sure if she said right now she doesn't want to.
Right. I heard it's hard too. I knew it's people that have been adopted who sought out their biological mother and they haven't met them, but that it's not quite the same. There's something off about it, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the experience is different because, depending on the child and where they're at, sometimes children can build it up to be, it's going to be a happy reunification, and there's trauma on all fronts, for the parent that had to make the decision to release their child to be adopted, or if it's domestic, for foster care or whatever that situation may be. And then there's dynamics for the adoptive parents on what does this mean for us in our relationship, and for the child. It seems like it's so complex. And so when parents are navigating all of these feelings with young children, what kinds of resources do you have or have you created to support them?
Well, as we were forming our family, we quickly acknowledged the expertise of professional therapists, counselors, and along the way, we sought the advice of many. So we always had that support and had provided professionals or specialists for my daughter to talk to, because she couldn't possibly be expected to share all those feelings with me. I mean, how she wouldn't want to. So, right. You've got to set that structure and provide the opportunity for her to talk it out with someone else.
That's wonderful. And then I've heard that you are creating a book. Is that going to be something that would be a great resource for parents with younger children?
Yes, that's the purpose of the children's books, is to focus on the difficulties in acclimating to a new family, whether that be language, food, or culture, or a sibling. And, and again, the children's books are short, so it's a short amount of time to convey some of these big messages. But I find that they're effective ways to just start the conversation.
Right. It's always hard sometimes as a parent to really know what direction to even start when you do talk to your children about things like this.
And to put these subjects in a children's book, I think, is an effective way to just begin that process. Yes.
Definitely. Now, one of the questions that I have, and it's slightly different, but as I'm listening to the challenges of navigating, I would almost call it blending a family, but bringing a family together through adoption, it does make me think of some of the similar dynamics to when you're blending a family together when parents are marrying after having gone through a divorce. While the situation is different, very different context, I'm not saying they're exactly the same thing, but it seems like some of those traumas and some of those dynamics can be similar. Do you see that there's any parallels between navigating a child through adoption and blending families together?
Well, I think you're right on with the themes, the broad themes, because every family has its own routine, its own kind of culture, so to speak.
Right.
Foods, holidays, sometimes religions. There's so many issues that need to be pulled apart a little bit, like peeled and kind of put back together. So I do see parallels to adoption. There are obviously some differences, but you're exactly right. It's just this concept of blending families and the expectation that everything is now just, as you said, going to be wonderful, and now we're all a family. But these issues, I think, really need to be pulled apart, examined, and talked about as a family.
I would agree. And it's a delicate subject because there is trauma and pain wrapped up. As I was mentioning just before we got started recording, Kris and I are, I would say, continuing to blend our family. Sometimes people like to say
continuing to blend.
Yeah, because some people will think like now that you and I are married, automatically we're officially blended. But I think it's like this continuous process where issues arise. We have to figure out how to communicate through them. And sometimes it's a challenge of the way that, let's just say, well, we're not going to single out any one specific child, but they grew up in one way and now things change with the structure because the blending happened when they were a little bit older. We'd even talked about what would have happened if the kids were all coming together when they were, teeny tiny. And I think that as you're mentioning, Anna Maria, like the complexities and the nuances of what happens in adoption when a child is younger versus older, there's similar themes is what I'm saying, Kris.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So in your new book, is it specifically focused just on adoption, or do you think that it could be beneficial for families navigating other types of transition?
I personally think it could be benefiting families with other types of transitions, although the focus of the story is an adopted child.
Mm-hmm. And you had also mentioned that you had written another book. Can you tell us a little bit about that one?
Well, my memoir called L.I.F.E at the Border was meant to kind of summarize the entire adoption journey and kind of the as I said, the funny, the sad, the heartbreaking, heartwarming aspects of bringing a child from Mexico into your family, and just the relationship between the two girls. As I said, we did this so our older daughter would have a sibling, and they turned out, as many families are, to have just completely different personalities. So I say this with a little bit of sadness. I mean, they're really not close as siblings as yet. I think I'm still optimistic. Maybe we can make that happen at some point, but they're so different. And I was so anxious for them to be the same. And that just, wasn't realistic. So, I've learned so much through this process, and that was, so anyway, I brought all that together and put it in my memoir, kind of start to finish. And it was, just an unbelievable journey. I still look back on it and I'll laugh or cry, one or the other.
Aww.
Do you find that the process of writing the book was a little bit cathartic and healing for you?
Oh, of course, yes. Books aren't supposed to be, therapy for the authors, but it turns out that it was, and I really enjoyed writing it. Probably not as much as my daughters hated reading it. No, actually, they have not read it. I just want to make that clear, and I've just assured them I'm fine with that. Mm-hmm. Maybe someday they will, but yeah, they are to this day super embarrassed that I've written that book.
Anna Marie, we learned a lot about your experience and your process with the adoption. How was it for your husband? And what's his experience going through all of this?
We sort of had the divide and conquer philosophy at home, and we really worked unbelievably well together as a team to kind of pick up at school, do homework, intervene in the battle of the wardrobes, and you can imagine when they got older and they had phones that, they would take each other's clothes and post on Facebook, and then it was just, it was always something. But I think as a team we survived.
But how was he when you went through the whole process, the years and years of paperwork and getting the going down to Mexico and like all that experience, bring your daughter home for the first time? Everybody kind of experiences it in their own unique way.
He's a very I won't say chill, but just it was a very calming presence for me, and a very good traveler, and he's a very good organizer. And so he was just the perfect traveling companion and sounding board. And, just, I couldn't have done it without him. He's been amazing.
That's wonderful. That's good to hear.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And, I've heard horror stories of how the stress of the adoption process can really put a strain on a marriage. So what would your recommendations be for couples that are considering starting down this journey of adoption? First, I know you mentioned having like realistic expectations and resilience as it comes into the process, but how did you stay united as a couple through the ups and downs of those first couple of years?
Well, just to be realistic with what was happening and not happening. And as our daughter clearly needed someone to talk to, we just, admitted that we didn't have all the answers. And you really do tend to rely then on, well, not only professionals, but friends. And we did what we could to get her, introduced to as many families in the neighborhood. We lived in a very wonderful small town. And the school was very small. It's one of the smallest districts in Pennsylvania. And the community was very supportive. So all that together just made it very workable.
That's great.
Yeah, that's great advice. And, thinking of how much your books can be of help to people that are listening, where can our listeners find your memoir and this children's book that have you completed writing it and it's available, or is it going to be released soon?
Well, the memoir has been released. The memoir was released in 2019, and it's called L.I.F.E at the Border, an Adoption Adventure. And the children's book was just released a week or so ago, 2 weeks ago.
Well,
and
congratulations on releasing it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's called Many People to Love. And it's available. They're both available on Amazon.
Well, congratulations. And is it just in a digital version, or can individuals order a printed copy also?
Yes, they're in paperback and ebook formats.
Wonderful.
Wow.
And the memoir is in also on Audible. And there's actually just a wonderful woman who narrates it, who does the children's voices and the Spanish, and it's quite entertaining.
You mean you didn't have Rocky narrate it for you?
I was going to say, why don't you have yourself narrate your own book?
You have a great voice. You would have been great on Audible.
Thank you. Well, her pronunciation and some of the Spanish, she was just tremendous. So I've really enjoyed listening to her.
How long does it take for someone to do the Audible version of a book?
What do you mean?
Like how many hours did it take to record it for her?
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I think it was between 6 and 7, but but in terms of the process, you actually have to, I don't know if you're talking about that, but you actually have to go back and listen to it and maybe correct pronunciation, or sometimes she coughs, or sometimes she reads something twice,
Right.
So it does take a while to actually get a finished product, but the whole book, I think, is about 6 or 7 hours.
Right. I was kind of wondering, like, if you put an order and say, hey, I have this book, I need you to narrate it for me, get back to me in a week or 2 weeks or whatever.
Not realistic.
But whatever it is, I just wonder how long it took to do that. And there's a lot of different sound effects and takes and retakes, just like doing some podcasters will do this whole like narration on their show.
Oh, I see why you're asking, because you're wanting to, apply to be an Audible voice.
Listen, I would screw that up so bad. Let me tell you, I would trip over things and say things wrong and cough and all that. It would be like 100 different retakes. So, but I do know podcasters do spend weeks doing one episode because, like you said, they will take and retake and they'll add sound effects and all kinds of nuts stuff. But that's just how they do it,
Well, we're excited that you have both of these books out now. And so listeners, definitely check out Anna Maria's books on Amazon. We're going to definitely leave the titles in the notes for today. Any last words of advice that you'd like to give to our listeners about the adoption process?
Just that focus on the family, if you have a vision for your family, go for it and don't lose faith. The journey can be difficult, but love a lot of times can conquer all, but it takes a big dose of patience and resilience for sure.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Anna Maria, for being on the show. And we look forward to hearing more about your inspiring tales and advice for families navigating adoption.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey there, K2 crew. We love having you as our loyal listeners.
To keep up to date with what's happening behind the scenes, check us out on social media.
Yeah, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter.
And don't forget to follow our Facebook page.
Yeah, tag us in your favorite fun stories, and guess what? You might just end up on the show.
Ooh. I really loved this interview with Anna Maria, and I've really been reflecting on her words about the importance of understanding where one another come from in our backgrounds to help build a healthy family.
Right. And I also think about how the struggles it may feel like to want to adopt a child even from America here, how the process is quite difficult. I didn't even think about this when you have to adopt somebody from another country. Like, I always think it'd be harder to go like that direction because of the international barriers and stuff versus like, adopting somebody from, the same city or something. But I always think it's kind of difficult. I guess what I'm thinking is that like, it's probably easier on the child if you adopt them younger versus say you adopt a 15-year-old because, they understand more.
I think it just depends on the background and what the child has been through. I think that is a common misconception, and that's why there are so many older children and teenagers that are in the foster care system that are able to be adopted is because people say they would rather have a baby or a younger child because, like you were saying, well, they're easier to mold into the family. But then that leaves out a whole group of children that really are yearning for a family to really love them and to be part of. And I think that's important to remember is that regardless of the age of a child, at their core, every child wants to be loved and to feel like they belong. And so I think it's really important for us to be aware of that we're not playing into stereotypes, because I've heard that before, like, oh, I only want to adopt a baby. And I've had friends that have adopted. Actually, I have a friend back from Fresno that she and her husband, they just adopted a sibling set of 5 little girls.
What? You allowed to do that?
Yeah, because they wanted them to all stay together and they didn't want them to be in foster care. And, they were thinking that maybe that they would adopt one child, but when they found that one child that they loved and they found out that they had 4 other siblings in foster care, their goal was to keep the family together, keep all of the girls together. And so they went from being a couple of 2, and they're older, like they're my age and your age, so they're well established.
The kids are?
No, the couple is well established in their career. And so, I mean, I've been seeing on social media them making these absolutely beautiful memories with these little girls that, they get to stay together and they're respecting what their background is and giving them new experiences. But I think that one of the things that Anna Maria was hitting on is that there's some similarities, some similar themes when we're blending a family, when 2 parents come together after having gone through divorce or whatever the situation is, when you're bringing sets of children together, that it's really important to like try and give grace and to learn about each other's background. And I think that that's one of the things that I've been really trying to bring in as we've been blending our family is to understand for you, because you're such a person that's really set in your ways.
What are you talking about? It's because I'm old, baby, Get off my lawn.
Old, stubborn, I don't know. But to really understand the beautiful life that Ezekiel and I have had prior to being part of this family and the fun and quirky things that we like to do that maybe don't jive all the way with your style of living, and even like parenting and things like that, there's just a lot of different complexities. And I think that the number one thing to remember is to always assume positive intent and to give each other a lot of grace to learn and grow.
Yes, a lot of grace indeed. My middle name is Grace because I give so much of it.
No, I'm saying from my part that I need to give you lots of grace
Well,
because you're the most stubborn person I've ever met on the face of the planet.
About? As you're saying that, all the fun stuff that I did with Jacob and Mason when they're younger, I was kind of thinking, I don't know if they're really into those things anymore as much as they were when they were younger. I should take them every Saturday. I take them down to the bay, and we go to I call it the Pirate Ships. It was the San Diego Maritime Museum. I had a yearly subscription pass because I'm a member of the Maritime Museum. Oi, Captain. So that
was one long sentence.
I know,
but the other day we were driving past it and you were like, we need to take the kids back to the pirate ships now. I'm like, honey, they're big and they like to run around and get into stuff now differently from when they would be smaller and explore. I always would think
as they get older, they'd be more into history and more into that kind of stuff.
But that's because you're an old man. The kids they like to run, they like to jump, they like to play with Nerf guns, they like boxing,
basketball.
They like jujitsu, they like high intensity, high velocity types of things. And I think
not walking around an old pirate ship looking at stuff.
So I think what this whole episode has reminded me of is to be aware of what our kiddos are going through and to try and learn what it is that they're interested in and what their background is, especially if we're blending families, so that we can discover more about them and build a new healthy future for the family. Don't you think?
Fantastic, baby. That was well said.
Well, thank you so much. So anything else you want to leave our listeners with, Chris?
Well, if you'd like to leave us a little voice feedback, you can go to our website, www.chrisandchristineshow.com. And on the top of the website, you'll see a little voicemail page. Click on that, send us a voicemail feedback, and we may play that on the podcast in a future episode if you want. If you don't want to, you'll just say that.
And we really appreciate you listening. Definitely check out Apple. Check us out on Apple and leave us a review. We'd love to get your honest feedback. We love 5-star reviews, but honesty is the best policy. And so we would love to hear from you there. Definitely subscribe to this episode and to this whole Chris and Christine show. Share it with your friends. And we just appreciate you so much.
We sure do. Please share the love. We share our love, you share your love.
And thanks so much for sticking around with us. And we'll be back with you
next week.